Being free means being free of the confines of ego, of society, of religion, of the idea of what spirituality is. So the ascension process is long, it's tumultuous, and it, again, I can't state it enough. It's about peeling away the layers, and it happens a little bit every day. Every time you're courageous enough to share your truth, every time you have an inspiration that you feel, let's say you become courageous enough not to think that meditation is silly, so you give meditation a try. Suddenly, your mind is quieting. Suddenly, you're feeling, you're sensing your heart again. Suddenly, you realize you have an aha moment.
Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
I'd like to welcome you to Conscious Ascension here on the Just Bernard Show. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's talk about what this class is going to be about. First of all, let me acknowledge this is only going to be a 1 hour, I don't want to say overview, but it is 1 hour long, so we're not going to be able to get too in-depth into everything. So I kind of will be glazing over a lot of the subject matter. Hopefully we will be able to do some work during the time allotted. But of course, everything that I'm talking about today, you can go much deeper into, do some more research, and actually, hopefully in the future, I can dedicate an entire show to each of these particular topics, as we're talking about a huge array of study and work when it comes to conscious ascension. It means different things to different people. So what is conscious ascension? Let's start off by talking about where we are today. What is happening and why now? We keep hearing about the global awakening. We keep seeing so many things changing so rapidly. Everywhere from the light worker movement to the starseed to the activists to, you know, the exposure of corruption. I mean, so much ugliness is coming up to the surface right now. As well, at the same time, we are getting these amazing spiritual awakenings happening to hundreds of thousands of people around the globe. So why is it happening? Why is it happening now? Well, there are many different theories behind it, a lot of speculation behind it. Coming from a metaphysical point of view, I feel that this is all happening now for many different reasons, but one of them being, and probably the most important one as far as I'm concerned, is a cycle of humanity. Well, you know, we talk a lot about the different, the yugas, the Hindu yugas that we've had many people come on and speak about. Back during 2012, we talked about the Mayan calendar, and, you know, everything in the universe is cyclical. And we've seen it, you know, with the Bronze Age, the Gold Age, etc., etc. Now we have come to the part where we are now moving upward. I wish I had an image to show you, but I don't. In our history, our time and space history, that we are now moving upward again. We went down to the bottom during the Dark Ages, and now we're leaning and heading toward the Golden Age again. Now, that Golden Age may not happen in our lifetime. That Golden Age probably won't happen for several more generations. But the good news is that we are now up and running, moving upward. Humanity is in a state of very fast evolution right now. And along with that, we're seeing an evolution of technology, we're seeing an evolution of spirituality, we're seeing an evolution of how we communicate. And I believe that has a lot to do with what's happening today. A great example of that we saw with the Arab Spring, how, I mean, through Twitter, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people rose up in Egypt, and that really showed the world how much technology and social media can be a helpful instrument and a helpful tool. We now have the ability, I now have the ability to speak to you here from Roanoke, Virginia, and my voice is being carried around the world on Revolution Radio and on Facebook Live. We didn't have that, well, maybe 10 years ago had just started, but we're now having the ability to communicate instantly around the world. If you think about it, you know, back in the 50s and 60s, they used to have to use, you know, Western Union or make a long-distance phone call. Do people remember making long-distance phone calls and having long-distance plans? Now you just press a button on your phone and your message or your voice can literally instantly go around the world. So technology has been a helpful tool. At the same time, you know, technology has been a little bit divisive, a little bit distracting, and can be something to hamper this growth if we allow it. The ugliness that is happening in today's world, with all of the technology, with the astrological alignments and whatnot that we've been going through over the last decade, we are seeing a birth of a new consciousness arising. And while this new consciousness is arising, while humanity is going through this awakening period, we are going to see a lot of ugliness. I just mentioned it before, and I've mentioned it in the past. It's almost as if our body is going, our earth body, our humanity, social, geopolitical, geological, Gaia herself is going through a detoxification. And in order for us to detoxify, we must allow all the dirty, infected bacteria to rise to the surface. And we're seeing that a lot in the way a lot of the ugliness that has been just lying below the surface over the last decade or so, or maybe the last couple of decades, has now risen to the surface. We're seeing bigotry, racism, hate, just so much ugly aspects of our human spirits, of our human selves, you know, rising to the surface. But why is it happening now? It's happening now because it has to happen now. It has to happen now. You are going through your spiritual awakening, but so is humanity. And as we are watching this stuff bubble to the surface on Facebook, on the news, on the Alex Jones show, whatever it is that you're seeing it happen on, it's a reflection of what's happening within you. Remember, the macrocosm is the microcosm. So when we see this happening outside of us, it is our opportunity to work inside of us, to give us the ability to look at those dark aspects of ourselves. Now, I don't want to go into a whole thing about the shadow self and embracing the shadow self. We're not going to have time for that. Yes, there is a shadow self, and yes, we need to learn to embrace it and love it. There's a difference between our shadow self controlling us and rising out, you know, uncontrolled the way we're seeing now, versus acknowledging that it might be a part of the whole picture of who we are. So what can we do about it? What can we do about this awakening? What can we do about the ugliness that is rising to the surface? What can we do to accelerate it, or to even just live through it and to get through it? There's nothing. Nothing. So many people that I speak to, and I have spoken to thousands of you over the last 15, 20 years that I've been doing this work publicly. So many people are afraid of what's happening. So many people are afraid of what's happening to them. A lot of people are getting paranormal or psychic abilities, and it's freaking them out a little bit. Excuse me. I've seen and heard of people. I actually had a dear friend of mine who had a UFO encounter, and it scared the heck out of them. And she said she never wanted to see that again. It was just too much to handle. But we're going to be seeing that. We are going to be seeing more and more ET communication, visitation, but more on a personal level. Again, that's a whole nother show. We're going to see people whose spontaneous spiritual awakening leads them to paranormal and psychic abilities, more lucid dreaming, and as well, we are going to be seeing a lot of change happening quickly, and it is happening quickly. It's not like I'm projecting into the future. We're seeing it happening now. There's change happening now. What can we do about it? There's really nothing we can do about it. We must acknowledge that this is an opportunity for humanity to lift itself out of the slumber that we've been oppressed in for the last several thousand years. This is an opportunity for us to say, as a collective, that we are rising up, that we are going to be better, that we are creating a new earth. And with that, we must also, and what can we do, is to work within, work inside of ourselves, go within, create change within. When you see something you do not like on the outside, that gives you the opportunity to work on the inside. And I say it quite a bit, that it's not controlling what's going on outside of you, it's controlling how you react to it. Are we going to react to it in a way where it oppresses us, where it makes us unhappy, where it makes us just angry all the time? Or are we going to learn to observe what's happening around us and I don't want to say control the reaction, but to develop a way of just taking in the information and being proactive with the information that we now have, with what we've just seen on Facebook, with what we're feeling inside, with the paranormal experiences that we might be having. It's an opportunity to go inward and work on that. So there is a lot we can do. There's no reason to feel that you can't do anything, I feel, is the most important thing here. Remember, the ascension is not just you. It is all of humanity. It is the entire planet as a conscious being, as a collective conscious being. This is a collective awakening that's happening. So the ascension process, well, there has been so much misinformation. I don't want to say disinformation. I don't believe people are doing it on purpose. I don't believe that people are intentionally trying to screw up our idea of what ascension is. But the reality is that there is a lot of misinformation. And we see that a lot, especially within the, how shall we say, the garden variety spiritual folk. When I see something, let's say I post something political, and of course you see, you're on my page, you know I'm going to post something political, and I see these comments of, well, that's not very loving, that's not very spiritual, we're not, hate begets hate. And yes, that's all true. That's all true. But what it is it's human. What it is that I am being authentic to my humanity. And opinions are one thing. It's just an opinion. So stating that I dislike a person like Donald Trump, I don't like him. But so what? I don't like him. I'm allowed to say I don't like him. As a human being, I think he's an awful human being. But that's just my opinion. And I have the right to share that opinion. It's not hurting anybody by stating an opinion. What I'm trying to say here is that the ascension process is about peeling away the layers. How does the ascension process work? The ascension process works by learning to communicate with your higher self, which I speak about often and we'll go into a little bit more, and to be honest with yourself, honest about how you're feeling, honest about who you are, what your spiritual identity is versus the identity that society has put on you. We are constantly being programmed. We are constantly being told who to be, what to be, how to be. We have this unwavering ability for some reason that when we get caught up on a spiritual path, whether it be Catholicism or Judaism or Christianity or Wicca or paganism, that we feel there's a certain way that you have to be. If you're this, then you must act like this. And we're putting ourselves in these molds, which is not allowing us to ascend, because all you're doing is you're going down the path. You're not going up the path. What I mean by that, if you get caught in that mold, in that stereotype, you're no longer being authentic, because you may not be acting, thinking, believing, or sensing and feeling authentically. You're almost parroting something that you're not, because you were told that's how a heathen acts, that's how a Christian acts, that's how a spiritual person acts. It's not like that. The only thing for me in all of this process is harm none, do what you will. Harm none. If you're not harming anybody, if you're not intentionally inciting violence, if you're not intentionally hurting someone, do and say what you feel. I mean, be gentle, of course. I mean, try to have some manners and be polite. But as well, when you're outraged, feel the outrage, but let it pass. When you're feeling loving, feel the love. I've done my best to bring the term "I love you" out of hiding. People are so afraid to say "I love you." They're embarrassed to say "I love you." I've gone out of my way for the past 10 years to say "I love you" to everybody that I love. No matter if they're my friend, my family member, someone who I work with, who I love to work with, I feel very comfortable saying to your face, "I love you." And so many people are afraid of that. The ascension process is peeling away the layers of years and years of programming, of social programming, of religious programming, of TV programming, societal programming. And not only that, the most important programming is the one that goes on within our head, the ego. Peeling away the years and years of ego programming in order to reach that sacred spot that is within all of us, that develop that communication with our higher self, and to live authentically, harming none, living authentically. When you are truly moving toward ascension, everything helps you to become freer. And I don't mean, free spirit, wacky, kooky, dye your hair purple and live off the grid. If that is for you, then that's great, but that's not the only way of being a free spirit. Being free means being free of the confines of ego, of society, of religion, of the idea of what spirituality is. So the ascension process is long, it's tumultuous, and again, I can't state it enough. It's about peeling away the layers, and it happens a little bit every day. Every time you're courageous enough to share your truth, every time you have an inspiration that you feel, let's say you become courageous enough not to think that meditation is silly, so you give meditation a try. Suddenly, your mind is quieting. Suddenly, you're sensing your heart again. Suddenly, you realize you have an aha moment. And then when you have that aha moment, you begin to act on it, courageously acting on it. There's a, I don't know how many of you know the witch's pyramid, and I might get the steps wrong, but it's to know, to dare, to will, to be silent, or maybe to will and then to dare. But dare is in there for a reason. It's about having the courage to act and to sense and to align with that what your heart is telling you, what your heart is calling you to do. And just in case there is any misunderstanding, if your heart is telling you to hate, if your heart is telling you to hurt someone, if your heart is telling you to be afraid of people with a different skin color or a different tradition or a different belief system of yours, that's not the heart. That is not the heart. That is not being authentic. That's reacting to the programming of hate that you have been taught by your mother, your father, by the American president, the current American president, That is reacting. That is not being true. That is not being authentic. Hate is taught. So don't think that because you hate someone, you want to be authentically hateful, you're going through an ascension process, because you're not. That is not ascension. So moving on. What are some of the things that we can do, and what is the pineal gland, and why is it so important? We hear about the pineal gland all the time. The pineal gland is this little gland in the middle center of your brain. It's visualized as the third eye, and of course, then the third eye is visualized between the brow. That's not where your pineal gland, by the way, is, but it's visualized here in the center, the third eye area above the center of your two eyes. The pineal gland itself is buried deep underneath the brain in the center. But what's so important about this? What's so important about the pineal gland? The pineal gland excretes a very important, I forgot if it's an enzyme or a hormone or whatever it is, but it's a secretion, which is like a natural DMT. It is DMT, as a matter of fact. And this has been proven to show that those of us who have had shamanic experiences, or those of us who have evolved spiritually or magically, for lack of a better term, metaphysically, we release a lot more of that natural DMT in the pineal gland. The pineal gland is a lot more active when we are in states of trance and meditation, etc., whether you're doing astral projection or, doing magic or whatnot. The pineal gland has a lot to do with that, especially when it comes to removing the veil of illusion. And we always talk about the veil of illusion. What is the veil of illusion? The veil of illusion is the world that the ego presents to you, and you think it's real. Well, that pineal gland is going to help you see through that. The third eye is exactly that. It is the third eye. The third eye, symbolically speaking, is that which lets you see beyond the illusion, lets you see into the infinite, into the abyss, and have a greater understanding of the universe and all that is within it, your place in it, and to understand the web of life and how we all truly are connected, whether we can see it or not. You can see it when your pineal gland is active. Unfortunately, in the average human being, it has become calcified, and that calcification comes from years of not using it. It comes from fluoride, which is in our water, it's in your toothpaste, it's probably in all the foods that you eat. I mean, you think about water as a main ingredient to most of the food we get, especially if you go out to eat. They're not getting pure anti-fluoride, pure water. They're getting it from the tap, and they're making their spaghetti sauce or pizza sauce with that water from the tap, which has fluoride in it. When you have a shower, you have fluoride going into your skin. And fluoride is one of many things that calcifies the pineal gland. So we need to activate it. We need to, if we are truly moving toward the path of ascension, we're moving up the path of ascension, we must take steps to decalcify our pineal gland and to do the work that needs to be done to do that. And I'm going to get into that more when we return after this break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at revolution.radio. And go ahead and make a small donation. If you really enjoy my work, not only on the radio show or my video shows or my classes or on my Facebook page or my YouTube channel and everything else I have my fingers in, and you would like to support the work I'm doing, you could become a patron. Patrons do receive a lot of patron-only exclusive content. Actually, the video version of this class will be available only to my patrons, and you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Bernard Alvarez and become a patron for as little as $2 a month. Immediately, you'll be able to get a free copy of my book, as well as the class that I'm going to mention coming up of how to communicate with your spirit guides and your higher self. Anyway, so back to the class. We were talking about pineal gland self-activation. And yes, we can self-activate it. And it's quite simple. We've talked about how we must decalcify the pineal gland. We can do that through what we put into our body, what we allow into our body, but we can also utilize meditation. I meditate every single day, maybe once or twice a day. And my meditation, I know that I've done the work that I need to do when I begin to feel the third eye or my pineal gland vibrating. It's almost as if it feels like someone's sticking their thumb on my forehead, but it goes deeper into my brain. It's an amazing feeling, and I hope that you can all get to that point one day, if you're not already to that point where you can stimulate your pineal gland and have it vibrate. But until then, you can work on it through self-activation meditation. I do have a self-activation meditation on the pineal gland available at my YouTube channel, but I'm going to go through a very quick overview of it here right now, time allowing, which we have some right now. So let me share that with you right now, and it's pretty simple. All you need to do is to close your eyes, allow yourself and allow your mind to become a little bit quiet. And you can either begin by starting at your feet and allowing your feet to relax, allowing your legs to relax, and then bringing your attention to your first chakra, which is at the base of your spine, and begin to see that area spinning or vibrating, sense it vibrating, sense it spinning, and bring your attention back up to your belly, same thing, allowing that area to begin spinning and vibrating, and working up each chakra, going up to the solar plexus, going up to the heart, going up to the throat, and then your mind's eye, using your mind's eye, bring your attention to the spot just from inside of your head, just behind the third eye area. It's almost as if you are in the core of your brain yourself, and bring yourself to that spot, and you can either do a tone. I'll do that with you now. Just take a deep breath and just make a noise. And allow that noise to vibrate the inside of your brain. Try it with me. Try it with me. Use a tone. Let's use sound to try to stimulate the pineal gland. Taking a deep breath, bringing your attention to the inside core of your brain, and just make that noise. Just a simple and then now just visualize the tone. Visualize the pineal gland waking up. Visualize your consciousness coming from just behind the brow, just between and above your two eyebrows. And focus as if you're looking out, concentrating just on that spot alone. And just by acknowledging its presence, just by acknowledging your consciousness from that spot, you are activating it. May not be full-blown activation, but you can almost feel it kind of loosening up like a rusty old gear. It begins to move a little bit. It begins to loosen up a little bit. You might become a little more relaxed. But just bringing your attention to that spot, making the tone, allowing your consciousness to be seated from that one little spot begins to give it life, and it begins to allow it to become activated. And again, this is just an overview. I hope that helped a little bit, and I would highly recommend going to my YouTube channel or my website or my Patreon page, or it's at all three, and look for pineal gland activation or pineal gland meditation. I forgot what I named it, but that's a very powerful exercise that you can utilize to stimulate and activate your pineal gland. So moving on, here we go. we've become aware of this amazing awakening. We become aware of our authentic self. We feel the calling from our heart, from our spirit, from our higher self. We're aware of the injustices of the world. We see what's happening. It's ugly, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's horrible. We're aware of it, and you start talking about it to people, and they think you're crazy. You've got no one. You're alone. This is happening to you, and nobody understands what you're feeling. Everyone looks at you sideways, like, what? What is he talking about? What is she talking about? It's important, and this is why I started doing this work. When Treva and I and Annabelle and I forgot who are the other founding members, Derwin, started the Global Illumination Council, we did it with the intention of creating a community of those going through this ascension and awakening process, and create a network where people could rely on one another. And man, I've made thousands of friends over the years. Of course, unfortunately, the Global Illumination Council was dissolved several years ago, but my work continues and Treva's work continues. But it's important to have that network, is the point I'm trying to make here. Begin developing a network of people that you can turn to that aren't going to think you're crazy. People that you can rely on. I call it almost like a, well, and to this day, Treva's still, and I believe I am still for Treva, my light worker buddy. my person, like, oh my God, this just happened to me. And I know that Treva's not going to judge me if I tell her little blue light beings popped up at the foot of my bed, and they told me this and they told me that, and she can tell me beings popped up at her bed, and I'm not going to think she's crazy. We can actually have a talk about it. It's important to have a safety network for the journey ahead. It is going to be a long journey. It's a lifelong journey. If you ascend so far that, you know, your ego is now your, how should we say, your servant and not your master, that's great. But that happens far and few in between. Within, you know, a large society like ours, maybe 0.00001%. The reality is you want to build a network. You want to, again, have a light worker buddy, an awakening buddy, someone who's not going to think you're crazy. If you can afford it, hire a coach. I'm available for coaching. If you need someone to talk to, I do spiritual consulting for this very thing, Awakening Ascension Consulting. You can start a group on Facebook or join a group on Facebook with people that you trust, that you can at least feel comfortable with. And not only that, and I want to make this very, very clear about this, is that just because you are going through the awakening process your way doesn't mean that somebody else is going through the awakening process the very same way. Everyone is going to experience it a little bit different. I remember a lot of the conflict for me in the early days was, oh, well, you don't believe that? Well, I believe that. It's like, well, that's fine. Yeah, but then you're not awakening if you're not believing that. No, I'm just not awakening the way you are. My awakening path is different than yours. My path to ascension is different. It's very personal. So it's okay if not everyone that is awakening believes in extraterrestrials or transdimensional entities. It's okay that not everyone sees the corruption in the leaders of the world. It's okay if people don't believe that there's an awakening happening. What I say is you find the friends that you have something in common with, that you can talk to about what you're passionate about. And I shared this in the past. You know, I live in Roanoke. Roanoke is a blue dot in the middle of a very red state. And they're blue, man. They are just as bad as the diehard, you know, conservatives are outside of the city. The diehard liberals are just as, you know, adamant about the Democratic Party and blah, 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 blah. But you know what? We have a lot in common, because those people are about compassion. They're about helping, you know, they're about social justice. They're about, you know, helping people of color, of the LGBT community. So I can align with them. Even though I'm not a Democrat and I do not believe in political parties, I can align with them on the issues. And I have a lot of friends that I can talk to about these things because of that. The same thing goes for you. Create a network of people that you can talk to about the issues that you're passionate about. And most importantly, find a buddy. Yeah, back to the beginning of what I said. Find that one buddy that you can talk to about anything on this, that they're not going to look at you or tell you that you're crazy, because what you're experiencing, those aha moments, those paranormal moments, those oh my gosh, the world is, these people are corrupt, we've got to get rid of the monetary system. We want to be able to talk to people about that, and it's going to help you become more comfortable and becoming more authentic in the long run. So by all means, make an effort to build a safety network for your journey ahead. It is an individual journey, but you don't need to do it alone. So like I was talking about earlier, many of us are, as we're going through this awakening, we begin to have downloads. You hear about it all the time. And, we've gotten to the point now where this has been happening for so long that we make fun of it. Like, ooh, what are you having a download, And you can call it your guides, you can call it your higher self, but it's that little spark of divinity within you, or that little spark of clarity of transdimensional consciousness that's there. Like some people have their ancestors reach out to them. Some people, like myself, I have these light beings, they kind of look like that thing behind me, that poster behind me, these little blue light beings, and they fill me with inspiration, and they fill me with all this information. I have a place I go to in my dreams. It's almost like I don't know if you want to call it a monastery or something, but it's the same place I go. I call it my galactic school of consciousness that I go to regularly in my dreams. Again, different for everybody. But eventually if you are going through this, you're making a connection with some type of guide. Again, it could be your higher self, it could be a Native American eagle, whatever it is, we are all guided through something outside of ourselves. And that's why I mentioned earlier the Connecting with Your Higher Self and Spirit Guides course that I have available. I have like a 2.5-hour course on my Patreon page, but it's just for my patrons. But don't be afraid is what I'm trying to say. Don't be afraid. Now, why are we getting these guides? Because it means that you are finally becoming more in contact with the infinite around you. It doesn't mean you're going crazy. I will say this, though. Be very careful. And let me do the warning here. Let me do the disclaimer. Be very careful when it comes to these guides, and especially to the people that you listen to that channel the Galactic Federation of Light, which I don't listen to the people from the Galactic Federation of Light. Don't. When you're listening to people who channel, or when you're beginning to get information coming through you in downloads, be very careful when they're too specific. I know people make fun of me or channelers or psychics or whatnot. Oh, they're too general. They're too abstract or whatnot. I will say this: when they're too specific, it's not real. If they start telling you, on November 15th, a light ship will land in the middle of a football field and bring everyone up and blah, blah. Don't believe any of that. Don't give yourself that hope and that false hope. And watch out for too specific, and watch out for anyone who tries to create divisiveness. If a message that comes through you or through somebody else is saying, well, they're Pleiadians, they're not good people, watch out for them, or they're Arcturians, they're not right, or they're just human, they're not right, or any divisiveness, because any true ascension guide is going to talk about unity, it's going to talk about infinite divinity within every single person. Be careful of divisiveness, especially if it's coming through you and it's telling you to hate people or hurt people. Then we're talking schizophrenia, so be aware of that. And no, I'm not joking. I've seen it quite a bit, unfortunately, doing this work. But be ready, be aware, and quite honestly, if you wish to connect with your ascension guides, just ask. I would like to speak to my guides, and tell them, come to me in my dreams, come to me in a meditation. But I will say this, too many people try too hard. And I had a client once, many years ago, that used to say, until I see them, I'm not going to believe it. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. You can't tell them how it's supposed to be. They need to manifest in front of me physically. Well, it may not happen that way for you. It's happened to me maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 25 years that I've seen a shadowy light figure. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. It's going to be different for other people. Don't make, how shall we say, don't say how it has to be. Allow it to happen and just say, I would like to meet you. Come to me as you will. Harm none, harming none. Always throw harm none in there by all means. And just pay attention. If you really pay attention, you will get symbols and signs and get a connection with your guides. And of course, by all means, go over and check out my course there. I believe I do have parts of it available on my YouTube for free, so go check that out. So let's move on a little bit, because we're running out of time, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to complete everything I wanted to cover today, but we're going to cover as much as I can. Maybe I can do a part 2 of this in the coming weeks. But Ascension is about understanding the different levels of consciousness. It's not just your ego consciousness. It's not just your day-to-day waking consciousness. And in order for us to live authentically and moving up the path of ascension, we must be aware of the different levels of consciousness, and most importantly is activating that quote-unquote light body and getting in line and whatnot, getting aligned with all of that, I should say. So how do we begin this process? How do we begin the process? We begin the process by clearing. I'll get into that in a second. Clearing and body frequency tuning. Clearing is not just, getting Reiki or getting smudged or whatnot. That's a part of it. But it's not just the body. It's your location. It's where you're sitting physically every day. If you work at a desk, if you work from home, or your home, you want to clear the home. You want to create balance and harmony and clear away. And I don't want to say negative energy, but I'll just say stifling or energy that is an obstacle to a free flow of chi and universal life energy, for lack of a better term. Do a clearing of your house. I think I'm going to do a video about it soon. I might walk you through my house and I'll do a clearing of how I do a clearing, but verbally I'll explain. What I like to do is, yes, sage. Always love the sage. Use the sage, get a smudge wand, but when you do it, make sure you go starting at the back of your house, starting at the back door, sage the walls from top to bottom, sage the corners from top to bottom. Go room by room, and then of course the ceiling, the floor, and the entire center of the space, going room to room all the way up to the front door. Same thing goes. My next step is I use sound. I'll either tone or chant, or I'll use a bell. I have this bell that sounds really powerful, and it's a Tibetan bell. I don't know if I have it available here. No, I don't. I use a Tibetan bell, doing the same thing, starting at the back door, ringing the bell very loudly, and again, just letting that sound permeate the entire space, the entire room, and then going room to room, moving forward through the house. When you're done with that, if you do the sage and the bell or the toning like we just did for the pineal gland, your house is going to be buzzing, and because your house is buzzing, you're going to be buzzing. You're going to love the feeling. So we're talking about home, and then the next thing, of course, is body. We want to clear and cleanse the body, whether it be starting off, maybe doing a half-a-day fast, maybe just not eating any processed foods, maybe drinking lots and lots of water, but you want to do some kind of cleansing detoxification for your body. Make sure that you do research on it. Everybody is different. I don't want to tell anybody how to do it. Everybody's different, so find out what's best for you and your body type. Figure out a way to detox your body. Go to a sweat lodge, or go to the beach and sweat to death. I don't know. Come to Roanoke right now where it's 98 degrees and sit outside and sweat. I say that obnoxiously because I don't like the heat. But you want to cleanse the body. Now also, we're talking about cleansing the mind. So start being aware of what you're putting in your mind. Give yourself a break. And that could be as simple as doing a 5-minute meditation every day. Allow your mind to understand clarity, clean and clear. Allowing the mind to become clear as well, even if it's just for a few moments a day. And then, of course, lastly, we're looking at the spirit. And to cleanse the spirit is that's when we're getting into the whole tuning and attuning our body frequency with something. And I'll give you a little bit today. Again, we're running out of time, but I will say, for me, to cleanse the body and the spirit is about aligning our frequency with our higher self. So what you can do, and I believe, again, there is probably a meditation available somewhere out there, either on my YouTube channel or somewhere else, of thinking of the highest good. And what is the highest good for you? What does your higher self look like? What does your higher self think like? What does your higher self feel like? And align and visualize it. I mean, you can literally visualize your higher self sitting in front of you or standing in front of you. You can visualize them covered in bright light, are vibrating a specific vibration, full of purity, if you're full of clarity, of compassion, of awareness. Visualize it almost as the ascended version of yourself, your light being. And sense its vibration, and then sense your vibration. And then allow the two frequencies to begin to become synchronistic. Synchronize your vibration with that vibration. Again, I talk about it all the time, like fine tuning of radio. That's how we channel our higher self. That's how we channel other beings, by creating this synchronicity within the frequency of our own body and the frequency with that which we wish to communicate. Put yourself with the frequency of the planet. Allow yourself to feel the frequency of Mother Earth, and sense the frequency of the trees in your backyard or the wildlife that is around you. And learn how to change your frequency. Learn how to change how to fine tune your frequency. That is all a part of this particular path. And then I'm going to, ever so quickly, I'm going to cover one last thing, because this will be important. I'll probably have to review it when we move into part 2, which I guess there is going to be a part 2, is how to ignite the light body. And again, being aware of what the light body is. When we're moving through into the ascension process, when we are moving into the awareness of our transdimensional presence, we all know in quantum theory and quantum mechanics and whatnot that there are multiple dimensions and multiple Earths and multiple Bernards and Trivas and all of you who are watching living on different timelines. And if that has been proven on the quantum level, who's to say that within this field of awareness, within this planet, this 3.5D, which now they're calling it 3.5 dimension, because of the vibrational frequency of the Earth speeding up, on this 3.5 dimension, how come we're not seeing our auras? I mean, I don't see auras. I can see them in my mind, but I just don't see them with my eyes. Then again, I have bad eyesight. Who's to say that, I mean, we can see it with night vision, how there are things we don't see, for example. Triva was just saying how she had her eyes dilated and everything looked completely different. So the way that we see things are just exactly that. They're a self-created perception of what the world looks like to us, and we can see it differently. So with that being said, there is, I don't want to say transdimensional, but there is more to us than just this physical body. The human body, for me, consists of 5 layers of energy. There is energy that is within our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body. The first layer is our physical body. The second layer, I'm going to just go into the layers and I won't go into too much. The second layer is our etheric energy body. Then we have the emotional energy body, the mental energy body, and the spiritual energy body. And that's it for me today, guys. I promise we're going to continue this part 2 in a few weeks. And anyway, I believe Joan of Angels will be next week or the week after. Either way, I love you. Have a wonderful week. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.